Well, hello everyone. We are live and welcome to the Stonewall Rebellion Veteran Association Facebook and YouTube page. And tonight we have a great show for you. My name's Leticia Romaro. I'm a political consultant and a television commentator on all things politics and social. And I am joined this evening by three veterans of the Stonewall Rebellion of 1969. These this lady and these gentlemen have changed the world with what they did in that summer night in 1969. We have with us Bert Kaufman. How are you, Bert?
Very well, thank you.
We have the founder and the director of the Stonewall Rebellion Veterans Association, Wilson Lee Henderson. How are you, Wilson?
Fine, thank you.
And we have the infamous Rita Rusty Rose with us today. How are you, Rusty?
Very well, thank you.
Well, tonight you have an opportunity to chat with um, this lady and these two gentlemen about what life was like that night in June when the world changed at the infamous Stonewall Inn. So we expect that you will put your questions in our comment box and we will have our guests answer those questions live for you. But to start us off, ladies and gentlemen, I thought that maybe we would quickly show the 2-minute video that we made for the 50th anniversary of Gay Pride. So hold on to your seats. We're going to show that now.
Through the mirror of my mind, time after time, I see reflections of you and me. Reflections of the way life used to be. Reflections of the love you took from me. Oh, I'm all alone now. No love to shield me. Trapped in a world that's a distorted reality. Happiness you took from me and left me alone with only memories. Through the mirror of my mind, through these tears that I'm crying, reflects the hurt I can't control. 'Cause although you're gone, I keep holding on to the happy time. Ooh, and you and I, as I peer through the window of lost time, looking over my yesterday and all the love I gave all is wasted. All the love that I've wasted, all the tears that I've tasted, all in vain. Through the hollow of my tears, I see a dream that's lost from the hurt that you have caused. Everywhere I turn, seems like everything I see reflects the love that used to be. In you I put all my faith and trust, wrapped before my eyes, my world has turned to dust. After all the nights I sat alone and wept, just a handful of promises are all that's left of love and you. Reflections of the way life used to be. Reflections of the love you took from me. In you I put all my faith and trust, wrapped before my eyes, my
Well, that brings back some memories, huh?
Yes, 1967, the summer of love. Reflections by Diana Ross and the Supremes. It was a very unusual song for them, as you all know. It was not the usual Motown sound at all, and it had Rusty probably knows the term. In the background it sounded like, I don't know, telegraph signals or something. But it was very unusual, and I remember my gay friends at the time specifically say there was 9 out of 10. They said, "Oh, that song will never be a hit. That song will be number one." It went right up there.
Well,
Very, very Stonewall jukebox, I should say.
Yeah.
so we saw a lot of pictures there. We saw pictures of the Gay Pride celebration in Central Park, where they honored the SRVA.
That was Stonewall 25, and the only vehicle that was in that. There were 2 marches that year, and that year they were marches. The other years, as we all know, they're parades. So they insist on calling them a march. But that was 1994 in Central Park, and the only vehicle in either march was the '69 blue Stonewall convertible, as it was known by that point at 25 years, and it led the main procession going into the park.
So why don't we start off by each of you telling us a little bit about that summer night in 1969. You were at the Stonewall. Let's start with you, Rusty, because ladies first. So let's start with you. Why don't you tell us, what was going on, what happened, what your memories are?
Well, just to be clear, that day I was in Washington Square because I had been a musician, rock and blues, and I used to stand there with a hat, come in from Long Island and jam with a lot of kids. And this gal, Vinny, asked me later on, "Would you like to come to the Stonewall?" I said, "Why not?" Yeah, I was never at it, and so I said, "Okay." And before that, early on in the day, Sylvia and Marcia, Sylvia actually put a few pennies in my hat and then went her way. But anyway, so in the late evening, maybe about 10 o'clock or something, we went to the Night Owl. It was a record store. We cruised by the Purple Onion and we started to walk. And Vinny, who was a drag king, was we got to the Stonewall and was having a little words with the guy peeking out the little hole, and then let us in. And we went to the dance floor to the back and everything. We danced, and I was from the front to the middle of the bar with Vinny. There were very few lesbians, people of color, like that. But I was from the middle to the front of the bar, and it must have been, gosh, I don't know, maybe 1 o'clock. I don't remember the time, but I remember seeing some gal came in, went to the back where everyone was dancing. Vinny had his eye on her, and I don't know, to him it wasn't right. And so I followed. We went back to the bar. We were laughing. A drag queen had come in, had performed, and was really agitated that she didn't get the money she was supposed to. And the next thing you know, the plainclothes come in and say, in my own words, this is a raid or something. But really, they didn't come in. It wasn't toward us at first. They came in. They talked to the guys that were behind the bar. The guy that was behind the bar. But then, they called us a few choice names, and then we responded.
Like the Q word.
Yeah. We could say it here, right?
Absolutely, you could say.
We don't say it at the SRBA because we fought against that word. So, but go ahead, Rusty. And you're right. It was a little after 1 a.m., like 1:15 in the morning. Nice summer night.
Yeah, I don't recall. It's but and I remember. I remember the officer. Now these were plain clothes, and told us to grab my. I had this guy's little snap down. I always kept it. I had a tambourine bag, leather case I had made on Bleecker Street, and I used to keep a change of clothes for the evening. And so I remember him grabbing at my shirt, and this. I think it was a female officer. I think it was, and they put Vinny aside, because Vinny was in a guy's shirt and pants. Put him aside, put me aside, the drag queen aside, told us to get to the left, go to the bathroom, do this, do that. And there was a lot of confusion, and they were actually trying to cuff Vinny inside the bar, inside. And of course, one thing led to the other. But a lot of the kids, some kids ran out while they came in, kids ran out. Then all of a sudden, I don't know if it was Officer Pine, but somebody had the idea of IDing us. I had no ID. And so, then that was a passing thing,
Yeah. So Wilson, so what was different about that night, any as compared to any other nights? Because weren't these raids pretty regular at the Stonewall?
Yes, good questions with an S, Letitia. Um, Number one, I was going to the Stonewall Club, as everyone called it. Nobody called it an inn.
Yeah.
Would have sounded like Motel 6. So I went to the Stonewall Club. In fact, as Rusty and Bert know, when you were talking to friends, on the phone or something, if someone was around you, you wouldn't give out the full name. You said, "I'll see you later at the club." They
Yep.
knew that meant right? But they knew that meant the Stonewall Club. So, long story short, my favorite Brooklyn expression, where I was born, Brooklyn. Um, but when this happened, I was living in Long Island because I was still living with my mother. So I was going there for 4 years. At that point, it was 3.5 since January of 1966. So that night was different in two big ways to me. Right off the start, just like Rusty sensed something, I didn't sense anything, but it was different because it was lit up like a chapel with all the votive candles for the funeral that day and the loss of the gay icon, gay and lesbian icon, Judy Garland.
Mm-hmm.
So at the funeral that afternoon in Manhattan, and it was just unbelievable. The club that night looked more like a chapel than a dance club, and half of it was a bar, very big, pretty big area. And then you walk through an archway, and that was the second part of it, which is now a vacant store. It is not
Yes.
there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So where I was apprehended was in the dance part with the jukebox with Shirley Bassey and Barbara Streisand and the Beach Boys.
The Shangri-Las.
Oh, how could we forget exactly the Shangri-Las? Give them a great big kiss. And who else? Bertie? What artists?
Martha Reeves and the Vanillas. Heat
Of
waves,
course.
dancing in the streets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they re-released that song in 1969. Of 1964, they re-released it that summer of '69, the Stonewall summer. And also, let's not forget the Marvelettes
Oh, yeah.
and the Chiffons
Mm-hmm.
and Brenda Holloway. What are you going to do when I'm gone? And most of all, Letty, you'll be glad to hear this because she's Italian. Actually, Rusty will be glad to hear it too. Miss Connie Francis,
Oh, yes.
Where
the boys
the
are.
boys are.
the national gay theme, the original one.
So
So,
need-
huh?
And as
needless to
Wilson
say,
pointed out,
music was an
emotions
enormous
were
part
running
of the
high.
club.
Yes,
Well-
yes. A matter of fact, in the poem to immortalize Wilson, I haven't. There's a nod to where the boys are.
Well, why
Mhm.
don't you read it for us, Rusty?
Well, Wilson, can you see this? Just let's say a few months ago, RFD magazine, which is the Radical Fairies, the oldest gay mag, published a lot of my poems. But there's one in
Yeah.
particular that I'm going to read. And it's called The Fanciful Clock. And of course, a lot of it is embellished, but there's also, truth in it as well.
Yeah, it's entertainment.
And so I'm going to read it for the first time on the air. Driven from the serenity of his Black Forest home to a murky perch in a Gotham jungle inn, his two-note trill resonates in the charged neon air as wings, underbelly, and beat complement humdrum jukebox tunes. Only one patron is attentive to his eccentric bellow. She is the most elegant of all club queens. Allison, a flaxen beauty, is demurely attired in peach swing dress, long matching evening gloves, nylons, and kitty heels. On a bar stool throne, her honey gloss lips wrap around a Tom Collins. She sips and hums a refrain of Where the Boys Are,
Wow. That's
along with the tireless melody of her cuckoo friend, as eligible young men flock and beg favor. The imperial queen of loveliness, with a flick of her wrist, she dismisses advances. Alone, she sits, waiting for the hourly chime from the woodland chalet. Her feathery friend will soon emerge, and together they will exchange pleasantries, break into song. It is midnight, the clock strikes, hand-carved doors open. The curious bird is attired in krypton-dyed psychedelic tuxedo. His sweet croon reunites him with his favorite lady. And feathers and fingers, they flutter out of the dank Stonewall coop over the Manhattan skyline, soaring steadily into the future, holding secrets with every everlasting memory.
That is fantastic.
That is something. You captured such a spirit there, Rusty. That's amazing, and it brings back great memories to people that were there that know it. Otherwise, they wouldn't realize the great importance of it.
Well-
And Letitia, Rusty's referring when she said the Imperial Queen. That's from a group I was going to bring up, the sister group to the SRBA, the Imperial Queens and Kings of New York, and that the Stonewall 25. That was the hugest event in gay history then and since. Nothing has beat it. It was over 1 million people in Central Park. They were
Yes.
hanging from the trees. And we were introduced, I believe it was by Liza Minnelli. Remember, this is Stonewall 25. And when Liza introduced us, she said, and remember, everyone, it's also the 25th anniversary of Mama.
Yeah, and somebody has to have a picture of me because I was on that stage too. But
That's correct. With that picture, that's the picture Letitia was mentioning before that's shown in that.
Let's see. I'm going to see if I can find it somewhere.
So that whole event was, I mentioned it was with the 69 Stonewall car, and most of the ones in the car, there was 6 people in the car, were from the Imperial Queens, not from the SVA, who were walking behind us. But the car was for the Queens, and I know they had their signs near that too, so that made it very unique too. And you asked about that night. So as I was saying, when the cops came that night, they picked the wrong night, which they admitted. I've said to them, and several of us have, who are no longer with us, unfortunately, at different meetings with them, over the last 25 years, I'd say. They admitted it was so stupid picking the night of Judy Garland's funeral.
awesome.
That was really dumb.
Emotions were running high.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The emotions were running very high, Letitia. It was the wrong night. And since then, we revised our slogan a little. In other words, don't F with the F'ers.
Yeah. But with that poem, Queen Allison is forever memorialized, and
Yes.
it is in this month RFD, which across the United States, and if there is others abroad, they are all reading about Queen Allison in that poem.
Well, let me show everybody a picture of
And
Queen
we can
Alice.
put it up on the SRVA website, which Letitia was about to ask us.
Elegance.
www.stonewallvets, one word, stonewallvets, VETS.org. And we'll say it again later.
So Wilson, you can't see this for some reason, but I have a picture of Allison Alante's $10 million look going to the Geraldo Rivera show up on the screen right now.
Yes, she was on when
she
Geraldo
is.
had his live, very popular for years, on CBS Channel 2 from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Queen Allison and King Farrell and some others from the Imperial Queens and Kings of New York were on his show for 1 hour. It was called Star-Crossed Lovers.
And I'm still trying to find a copy of that show so that we could get it up on the website. But
Thank
I
you.
remember that show.
yeah, at the very least, we have that gorgeous picture of Queen Allison that Rusty painted a beautiful picture for us in our minds, and I showed the real deal. So Bert Kaufman. So as
You want to hear
Wilson-
about that night? We didn't even say the date. It was Friday night, June 27th, 1969, the last day of the regular work week. And because it was a warm summer night, it was loaded. And this Christopher Street, which is what it was on, had loads of people just walking around enjoying summer, and a lot of tourists there also. And at that time, particularly Christopher Street, well, it still is the gayest street in the world, but it had a lot of gay clubs, not dance clubs, but gay bars all along Christopher Street from Greenwich Avenue down to the river.
And it was the dancing that was the problem, right, Wilson? That was what they got you guys on, was
No,
dancing together.
they didn't get you're funny. They didn't get us guys at all. We won the battle. They lost. They didn't get us.
No, I understand that, but they would come in to raid to get you to ticket you for dancing together, right?
No, that was not
Male
the
to
reason.
male or female to female. Yeah.
That
We were smart. We switched partners right away.
That's right. Which was
And also clothes too.
It's
Number of items of gender specific clothing. And Rusty, remember that when they came, she'd have to go to the ladies' room and put on a skirt.
But anyway, Letitia,
Or the
the
males
real
take off their
reason
skirt.
that it was raided, that's what you asked, is
Yeah.
that the big brass in the NYC, and mind you, I didn't know this then. Don't think I knew it then. I certainly didn't.
Right.
I barely knew about the payoffs. I only heard that through the grapevine, the gay grapevine. So the reason was that the big brass, as I said, in the New York City Police Department, found out that a lot of the local precincts, but especially the 6th precinct in Greenwich Village, were getting payoffs from the gay clubs because they were not supposed to exist, as insane as that sounds. So since they found out, the 6th precinct heads, like the guy who's in charge of the precinct, what's he called?
The commander.
Commander. I was thinking like warden. Anyway, they were there, and the 1st Division detectives were there. It was more than just the 6th precinct, and so they went there. And then when two of the mafia owners offered to make the payoff, as usual, it was 3 owners. 2 of the 3 happened to be there that night. That's when they said, no, we're not taking any money. That ended, and that's when, well, of course, the bright lights were put on in the club. Once the cops come to the door, there's a signal that goes to the back, and they put on the bright white lights. Horrible. And like Rusty mentioned, whoever you were dancing with, a guy with a guy, would switch and look like he was partners with a female. Even so, it was outnumbered. Males outnumbered female. I'd say 10-1, and also it was ridiculous because they had unplugged the Stonewall jukebox, so there was no music on anyway.
Got it. Got it.
But
So-
that's how it happened. And then, like Rusty described, they let most of the people go, but they kept certain people, they kept certain ones, different looks. And I knew I'd be kept for one of a few reasons. And plus, like Bertie said, I didn't have on that clothing routine that they had. I was wearing clogs, just like I am now. And they said they're female.
Mhm.
Most of the guys in Europe wear clogs. Anyway, that's why they did it, and I was held, and I was one of the ones when I was taken out, tried to get away from them, which I thought I could because there were so many people. The crowds kept getting bigger apparently because straight people came out from their apartments. They could hear what was going on. Everyone didn't have air conditioning then, and besides which, at this point it's 1:30, 1:45 in the morning. And the crowds just grew because there were a lot of people there to begin with. People supporting the gay community. That's what it was. So I didn't get away, but I tried. And two, what did they call them, Rusty? Undercover? Is that what you said? A plainclothes?
The plainclothes cops.
Yeah, they drove the convertible, which had the top down. Why not? They drove it to the old 6th precinct, and they kept it there for 3 days, 3 nights and 2 days, which is in this documentary we're going to mention, Inside Stonewall. They actually interviewed 3 different Stonewall cops, and when they did it, Rusty was with them. Tell them, Rusty.
Yes.
It was just a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I was asked if I would participate in Inside Stonewall. It was made by the New York City Police Department and the Benevolent Association. And so I say it like this: they took me to a secret location. They wanted to know if I truly was, because everybody was at Stonewall.
Yeah.
I mean, I could fill every arena in the United States with everybody who claimed they were there. So they took me to this secret location, and I'm saying to myself, well, will the officer that got me, will he remember me? But anyway, growing my hair is longer because I was asked to try to look as much as I could back then. So I got to the location, and the door, I go in, and the officer goes, "There's Rusty." Oh, and I went, "Oh my goodness!" And so I'm not going to say what, but because I really didn't recognize him, there was a few things I vaguely remember, and so I whispered in his ear a few things, and he answered yes and this and that, so I knew he was the right one.
You could say their names if you want, if you remember.
Oh no! It was like like for one thing, I could say it here. I asked him. I said, "Didn't you have a mustache? Weren't you?" He says, "Oh yes, it's off a long time ago." And just little things to try to make sure that this was the officer,
Right.
Frank.
Because that is a problem, right? As you said earlier, Rusty, everybody suddenly was at Stonewall. Even people born in 1980 are claiming to be they were at Stonewall because everybody wanted to be a part of the revolution, if you will, or claimed to be a part of the revolution. But for those of you that were there that night, how frightened were you by what was going on? I mean, was there real fear amongst you? What did you think was going to happen?
No, there was a celebration. It was a dancing, like Martha and Randall was dancing in the streets. The kids were all happy because they were hollering their heads off, and there was no barricade fighting like in Les Miserables that everyone's seen recently. That's why we strongly object to the word riots. I know journalistically it's an exciting word. As the newspaper editors told the reporters in the city room, if it bleeds, it leads. So riots attention grabbing, but it was no riot. There was no riot. Is a criminal term for criminal. The people at the Stonewall Rebellion were Americans standing up for their rights to socialize, not criminals.
Correct.
We reject that. Then, before that, and now, not criminals.
I was
And-
actually
And the
Right.
thing when you say
By the way, the
there's thousands of people who falsely claim
only
they
ones
were
who
inside the
were quiet
Stonewall.
then
That,
were the police.
Willie knows he was a regular there. What was the inside limit on the fire department thing? 100 people plus. All those thousands could not physically, But
On a
we have a
regular-
wide umbrella of inclusion. All the people were there in the community, out on the streets, joining the protest demonstration and the celebration of gay humanity.
on a
the
regular
rainbow
night
community.
at the Stonewall Club, there were, say, I don't know, 50 people there or something like that. That night was much more, but it could only fit so many people. It was a
Right.
nice sized club. I would guess there were 90 there. But
Mhm.
you hear these
100.
crazy figures like 200. No, they
no.
were out in the street, out in front, not in the
Yeah.
club.
Right. But Rusty, you said you were frightened.
I really didn't, like Wilson said, we know this in hindsight, but I could still feel, they came in and all this started. And what was I frightened of? I was frightened that my father would find out. I was more afraid what my father would do, But yeah, I really was frightened. That was one of my. I wasn't a few after that, but it was my first big time, being in the city and getting caught in this whatever it was at the time.
Right. So, and that's what a lot of people. Hold on one second, Bert. That's what a lot of people don't understand is that, and I'm not going to ask anybody to give away their age, but you guys were like teenagers. You
That's
were
correct.
you were not 30
Young.
years old. You were teenagers when this all happened. So for you all, it wasn't. You didn't plan to do this, right? This was a gut reaction of teenagers to being pushed around at the wrong time, wrong place, and you weren't going to have it anymore. Go ahead, Bert. What were you going to say?
Yeah, teenage rebellion, like the Crystal saying, he's a rebel. Yeah. And that's what I want to always say. And for ethnic authenticity of the demographic population of 55 years ago, at then, New York City was still a majority by the census, Europeans ancestry, and so the people in there, the kids, the street kids in Crystal, were white kids, mostly white kids, white boys, sissy boys, femme boys, and just a sprinkling of black, Latino, and maybe Asian or two. Now today, with the changing population demographic, it's mostly, as they say, people of color, third world people, with that one, the opposite demographic. Now there's a sprinkling of European ones. But the vision is to say, Stonewall was started by transgender people of color, which is strictly bogus and false ersatz. Yeah. Stealing Stonewall, as Wilson says. Or as I say now, the transgender Trojan horse to attack us.
But Bert, it was all, mostly, like you said, European or Caucasian,
American.
young teens, boys.
Yeah.
There were a few of us. I mean, let me just pop off a number from my head. It's not so, but let's say there were 5 of us lesbians in the bar. Maybe there were 3 people of color. I didn't count.
Right.
And there were
I
transgender,
remember
but
you, Rusty. You red hair from back there. You cute little gal.
I
You was
remember you
hanging out on
too.
the stoop on Christopher Street with the other kids.
And there were like when you came in to the bar, there was some trans gender clients, but they were older. They were not part of the except-
Transvestites, they were called.
they were called
Transvestites.
transvestites at the time, but there was a transgender gal that took my tambourine case, and the Stonewall owes me my leather tambourine case. And I wonder if in their basement, if they have a basement, I wonder if they have my tambourine with my leather case. I
Did
never
you ever
saw
ask
it
the
after
cops?
that.
Do you think the cops took it, or you think it's a
No,
Stonewall?
no, it was on the coat rack. She put it
Ah,
on the coat rack.
we should put a letter of demand out to the Stonewall. Anybody
Everybody,
watching?
and especially the listeners, the Stonewall Club, first of all, is only half the club. Like I said earlier, the other
Yes.
half is an empty store. It has a big sign now that says store for rent. So that's all the Stonewall Club is. Anyway, people, a lot of people think and speak like the walls of the Stonewall started the rebellion. No, it was the people who was there, and like Letitia clarified, very young, late teens, like 16 and up, and
That's right.
early 20s, like through 25. That was the main demographic age-wise. If so, I remember seeing guys there, or ones that asked me to dance, that were like 35, and I said to myself, like, how dare they ask me to dance? They're so old.
Buzz off, old man.
You know,
And that's what I thought, to see the transvestites, if you will, at the time, sitting at the bar. Like, I'm old now, and they were my age now, sitting on the bar. And you said they were 35. Could be. To me, they were old. But I could say my age. I was
there were one, yeah.
I was
But the thing
17.
is,
And the girls
Letitia,
back then were
like you
like
clarified.
Queen Allison were beautiful, looked like showgirls or Hollywood starlets, not
Oh, yeah.
these ugly
Glamorous.
street queen skeezers
Glamour.
they're putting up today. Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about kids, right? We see a new movement today of young kids in the LBG. Well, there's so many letters.
Yeah.
LBG.
Alphabet soup, Letitia.
I just say
Yeah.
rainbow. It
It's
covers it all, and no one
ridiculous.
can complain
We're talking
about it.
about the summer of '69, and specifically June, Letitia. So the audience should want to know what it was like then, not now. We know what it's not like now. We all agree it's most unfortunate for the most part. But
Yes.
back then it was the gay community. It wasn't all these divisions and words and God knows what they'll think of putting in the thing. They use words in the acronym for the gay community that none of us even know what it means, and we don't care either. So
I get it, but to talk to them now, see, they're feeling, right. The new generation are feeling that life is very difficult for them. But I want you to
Wait, let me get
explain-
out the violins. Let me get out the violins.
Well, explain to them what it was like. You know, I mean, Rusty, you said you were scared to death of what your father would do if he found out that you were at the Stonewall.
Right.
So, I mean, what was the difference in your mind about growing up gay in the '60s as opposed to now? So that people can understand that the rights that they have right now, the acceptance that is there right now for the gay community, you know, it was very, very different in the '60s.
Well,
So
the
talk
fact-
about that.
Letitia and the listeners especially, the fact that in New York City, the true gay capital of the world, we have far more population here, way over 9 million people. And you can imagine how many that translates to gay, etc. people. So a week ago, the New York City Council, which even has a gay caucus, there's only 6 people on that, they did not even invite the Stonewall Rebellion Veterans Association, much less honor us. Absolutely zero. That type of ignorance and insult is reminiscent to before the Stonewall Rebellion, with the attitude that the prejudiced police at that time had. It's like really outrageous. So you wonder 54 years later how you could have people like that. I don't know about the other two on the show, but when I first spoke at the New York City Council, it was 1972. Hardly any of the ones on the council now were even alive. So how would they know what was going on? They wouldn't.
Yeah, that's it. Today, the Uncle Tom homosexuals, the queer quisling drink the Kool-Aid of political correctness of the red fascists. They drink the Kool-Aid and follow the party line that is strictly toe the line and exclude the real people who have the real history, and what they call that historical revision, Holocaust denial. This is Stonewall deniers denying
Right.
real Stonewall and what really happened.
Right.
Rusty, why do you think that is? Why do you think that for 25 years, the Stonewall Rebellion Veterans Association led every parade,
Right.
was at the head of everything, and all of a sudden things changed? Why do you think that is?
I don't think so much things change. I can't understand the dynamics of it, but I would say it's an internal power struggle. It's
Yeah.
about economics.
Like Heritage of Shame.
It's about the
Professional
have-nots and the
homosexuals, the gay
haves,
mafia, as
and there's a
Wilson says,
power
the
struggle.
merry-go-round, or as
I think like
musical chairs of
people want to
greasing
be
each other.
famous,
Yeah.
if you will, or be recognized, and so in their trying to be recognized, people like myself and Wilson and Bert, are being discounted. Our stories are not. We're not even considered. We're not. A lot of us are not. And we did lead the way 49 years. The 50th anniversary was
Right.
a travesty. On our birthday party, we did not lead the way. They let groups that came after us lead the way, like the
Right.
GLF and this and that, because supposedly there were Stonewall revolutionaries in that group.
Oh, really? So
Denial
49
and
years.
You're
exclusion.
talking
and
about the
discrimination, yeah.
1970s. You know,
Blatant.
ones that were in groups that were very, I don't know what you would call them, outspoken.
Yeah.
Is too
And
kind.
quite honestly, Letitia, after the Stonewall and that, and thank goodness I found, Wilson, how we found each other again is funny. It's a funny story. But the thing is, I come in and out of it, and I'm glad Wilson keeps my picture a lot of times out of the limelight, and she has many pictures of me. But the thing is that the death threats they don't forget the death threats, continuous death threats I got.
And so did I, and so did Stormy DeLarveray.
Yeah,
And
Stormy.
Stephen Konigsberg and stuff, and that's why Emil Griffith had to keep a lot about him secret, because he was really in the public eye as a famed
Yeah.
boxer. And I'm bringing him up because only last month there was an opera at the Metropolitan Opera based on the two-side life of Emil Griffith, who you all know that I was involved with throughout the entire 1970s. I just passed the building, the Victoria, off Union Square this afternoon, about 4 o'clock, before I headed here to do the show.
Your love nest.
Yeah, and there's a picture, Wilson, of you and Emil
Oh,
that I put up on the screen for anybody who wanted to see that.
Vanilla and chocolate.
That's good, because I
Mm-mm.
can't see it. And by the way, Letitia, thank you for putting up the flyer for the Stonewall Rebellion Veterans Association with our conference and reunion. It's a reunion, too.
Come on down.
Testimonials.
It's richly rewarded. Yeah.
On Saturday, June 24th. Thanks for putting up that flyer. And it's from 3:15 to 5:30. We're having guests there, but the main speakers will be Stonewall veterans. And particularly for you, Rusty, the Stonewall cops are coming, and they will be speaking also.
oh,
You know, the three that we deal with now.
yeah.
And that's so important. It's so important for people. I worry and I wonder. I mean, do we think that ageism is playing a factor into this rebuke? Is it just that the young people, the young Hollywood types who want to own the whole gay rights movement and the gay pride movement? Do you think that they're saying, well, we're not going to honor those that came before us because it was before we were born, so therefore,
Ageism, exactly.
sound
Letitia.
kind of stupid. What are they going to do? Say they don't like Jesus because they weren't invited to the Last Supper, even so they weren't alive? It just doesn't make any sense.
well,
What
I'm
it
not
is-
saying that it makes sense. I'm just saying for 49 years you were front and center,
Correct.
And the 50th anniversary, when you said to the Heritage of Shame, I'll
Right.
use your terminology, who
Yeah.
run the Pride Parade, you needed a vehicle because some of your members now were older and
Yes.
needed and couldn't walk the distance. And they
Mobility
said
impaired.
absolutely no, they wouldn't provide it, even though they had millions of dollars of
That's
sponsorship.
right.
I
Correct.
mean, is it that they don't want to remember the men and women that paved the way?
Letitia, what they said, and all three of us know this very, very well. There was a lot of correspondence that ended up going back and forth, plus a nasty article in the gay rag paper, for which we sued them. And because, long story short, of the Wuhan virus, I nearly slipped. Uh, and the courts, as you all know, were closed for 3 years. Our case is going to be put back on the court calendar next month or August. So we have to have as many Stonewall veterans there as possible because they lied about uh, an incident where Rusty got a hold of one of the creeps at Heritage of Shame and read them the Riot Act, pun intended. Um, and then they twisted the whole story. It was
Yep.
none of their business, actually.
Got it. Well, I think, and that's why this program is so important. And, if they're not going to honor you, because I often say that unfortunately the young people today, they think the world started when they were born, and they think it's going to end when they die. They forget that, there were so many people before them that suffered so that they can enjoy the life that and the rights that they have now. And while things aren't perfect now, they're certainly different, right? They're certainly better for a young person who's gay, who's fearful of telling their parents, who's fearful of coming out. There's support services. There's people to talk to. There's help. They can have those conversations at school and in social clubs much more easily than you guys. I mean, let me ask you, how was it for you coming out to your parents? I mean, in the 60s.
Well, like you brought up before, and asked Rusty, at that time, that Friday, June 27th, at say 2 a.m. at this point, what I was afraid of was that my mother would find out, just like Rusty said, she was afraid her father would find out. So that's what I was afraid of, that my name would be put in the newspaper, like, say, the Daily News, which did things like that at that time. And I was afraid that my school would find out and that I would be expelled from the school, uh, mayhem at home. This is what we were afraid of. And outside of that, I wasn't afraid of anything, as all of you know. Basically, nothing scares me.
So,
My
so you're,
father, my
yeah.
father said you could go. You either get married or you go out in a box, or you go out in a box because And the other, and remember the other fear, Wilson, about being institutionalized.
Right, right.
Carted
And
off
Bert
to
knows
the
about
Cured,
that.
the
carted
cure,
off to the psychiatric facilities. If you were,
If
we
you
were
were gay, they could put you in whatever they
yes,
called it.
because at the
before
time that we didn't
DSM
have
before
the
73 was homosexuality was pathologized, but then with the Stonewall
was
Rebellion,
sickness.
the mental health, gay mental health, stood up and said, "Take it out. That's bogus. That's crap."
Right.
And they voted it out in '73. That's like bogus this year. It's the 50th anniversary, which is not memorialized. Instead, all the energy goes to transgender, transgender, transgender.
But
Bogus
back
crap.
then, Bert, right? What was it called? The DSM or something like that.
DSM.
The DSM in the psych in 1970s and in the early 70s
They
in the psychiatric
depathologized
manual,
homosexualities.
homosexuality was an you could get electric shock
And they were
treatment
going to
because of
cure
that.
people in
Or
all
Right, they
kind of
considered
nasty
it a
ways.
mental illness.
yes,
Mental
and then
illness.
of course,
And Letty, about Stonewall 50, you're right. That is when it changed around that time, actually a month or two before it. Instead of some of these gay organizations, coming and bowing down, so to speak, they did nothing. They did not honor us, as has
No.
been described in the show. And with Heritage of Pride, also known as Heritage of Shame, the main reason, beside what you described, they wouldn't provide the extra cars, but yet they provided them for grand marshals.
Right. So all the Hollywood bigwigs got to ride around in vehicles,
Yes.
but you three who had led every single
Right.
march, who stood in front of millions,
In
who
5 boroughs, by the way.
and I have a
Queens,
picture too
Staten
of you,
Island,
Wilson. This is in the '80s, right?
Yup.
When
with
Anita
Rob.
Bryant,
With Rob, yeah.
yeah. I
I
mean,
And,
still
and we
have
did
my-
Brooklyn, of course, and we did the Bronx. It only had it 5 years, but we let it for all 5 years. They had
I
it
still
for-
have my pin, Wilson. I wore this
Oh, yeah.
a pin with your butt showing. It says Anita Bryan kissed my ass, and I found that the other day.
Letitia loves that photo from the SBA website from 1977, where I'm wearing I don't know what kind
there
of.
it is. You're
shirt
wearing
you
a
call it.
you're
Bell
wearing a
bottoms, yeah.
paisley shirt. You're wearing
I
a
was
You
just
know,
paisley.
Letitia, what it is they forgot their focus. It'll always be a march. It's about our rights. It's not about corporate pride,
Right, but-
and that is the problem.
Bing. You know what? I
Follow
think
the
you hit
money.
the nail
Follow the
right.
money.
That's it.
You hit the
So
nail
with
right on the
Stonewall
head.
50, to clarify, because it hasn't been mentioned yet, the reason that we did not participate with that is because they didn't choose, like you intimated earlier, they didn't choose Stonewall veterans as the grand marshals of the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion. That was so insulting and ignorant and stupid. So we did a vote on it, whether to be in the parade, in the lead of it, but not the grand marshals, or not do it at all. And the third choice was to have our own event so that we would do something. So all the Stonewall veterans voted in person, like all of us three, or by email or letter or whatever. And it was overwhelming that we do not participate in that gay alleged pride. It was actually shame
Yeah.
parade when they did not have us as the grand marshals, which was a no-brainer. So we have put them on punishment now ever since. So it's 4 years. We haven't heard from them, by the way. And they're on punishment for, well, we call it a gay cut. Instead of boycott, gay cut. This way it goes everyone. There's a gay cut against Heritage of Shame of 5 years. So that's until next year. Maybe they'll wake up to Stonewall 55. We'll see.
Well, but what people are realizing is that you are the longest organized gay organization, right?
Yes. Yes.
That there is, and your members are aging out.
Yes.
And we're losing members all the time. And we have a GoFundMe page, right? You all have a GoFundMe page to help elderly gay members who need help with doctors and things like that. So anyone watching, if you want to go to the GoFundMe page, go to GoFundMe. It's Stonewall Vets, and you can donate there. But these organizations are not realizing the history that they're losing by not speaking with you. And thank goodness for that movie that they made, because a lot of the story will come out with that as soon as it's released. But we only have a few remaining minutes. We have about six and a half minutes left. So is there?
Well, wait a minute. Let Bert give 2 minutes more of the haters out there, because
Sure,
as some of our friends in very positive organizations, let me not mention that we have the very active support. I'll just give you a few examples. It's a laundry list, as Terry Ann used to say. We have the Human Rights Campaign. We have the GLBT political action. We have the Imperial Queens and Kings of New York, which we've mentioned. What other organizations, Bert? Just as an example. Oh, Pride Democrats of New York. We have the Stonewall Republicans of New York City. See, we're not a political group. And if anything, we're very open-minded. We're very transparent. So, we cover everyone, basically. And also, some in the entertainment industry, like Roland Emmerich, Centropolis Entertainment are longtime supporters of ours and very important ones, and so is Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS. We do a lot for AIDS patients, and we've been doing that now for over 40 years, as you know, since 1981. So there's a lot that we do besides going to schools and educating people about the facts of the Stonewall era and the Stonewall Rebellion and how it lasted 6 nights, not one night, and 2 nights it didn't happen because it was raining. You know, little ditties like this, which are very interesting. And by the way, I was only there the first night. That's the last place I would have gone the other nights, believe me. So this is just some of what we do, and like Letitia said, it's on our website. If you go to www.stonewallvets.org and just scroll down, if you want to donate something, that'll be helpful to the organization and to several of our members who are not in good shape right now in any way. You want to add something to that, Bert, about the creeps?
Oh yeah, Wilson and I have been ticked off in the past. We're trying, by mistake, in their website they left their audit of the available account funds, 373 million. Ah, no, that's small peanuts to some of the other ones, but the SRVA, Bupkas, and not what we deserve. We should be multi-billion-dollar human help agencies. But all these ones, as Wilson knows, with the merry-go-round music, they certainly get lots of executive compensation, like the big shot best stockies in there. They all have houses outside the city, out far out in Long Island, in the Hamptons, on the Jersey Shore, or up in the hills and Catskills, you know. Because I know talking to them, we're not in the city in our office. We're at our home upstate. Don't call us, you know.
So long story short,
we know
this
how
program,
when the flock catches.
The reality is we've given you some of the original history
that was
and
me,
how much fun it was
we
at
mentioned
the
it,
original
Sage, yeah.
Stonewall Club with the great music and the camaraderie. It was like a family, as Rusty
Years ago,
implied before. You were with your second family, so to speak. So it was very warm. It was nice. It was friendly. People weren't there for politics, that's for sure. They were there for social, and they were there to have fun and dance, meet others, and so forth.
Celebration, not criminal. No multi-million-dollar insurance claims from the vandalized property. No.
Right.
Right,
So
from the
you were doing what any teenage kids would be doing on a summer's night. You went to a club to dance with people that you were attracted to listen to the jukebox, to hang out, to, maybe sneak out of the house from your parents. But just like any other teenage kid, that's what you were there to do. But what you got was harassed by the police for, what was it called, the moral codes for violating
the moral squad,
the moral squad,
which of course we didn't know about at the time.
Of course.
And also, Letitia, you should know that unlike what was said during this 50th fiasco, the Stonewall police have been apologizing to us for 50 years. They have been to our symposiums, the SVA symposiums, since the very beginning, open up a dialogue with us, trying to mend, trying to mend. And one
the
thing
neighborhood
about
guys were cool, but then
Bert,
the Inspector Pine sent the attack squad,
does Bert not know
squad
that someone is
to
already
push
speaking?
people around, shove people around.
All right, hold on, Bert. Go ahead.
And one thing, what was I saying about?
Yeah, you were saying that
the police
cops were
involved at
apologizing.
Stonewall
The
have been
Stonewall
apologizing
cops.
to us, not at the 50th anniversary for the first time. For
No.
50 years, they have come to our symposium held by the SVA, and they have apologized. They have tried to mend fences with the community, and of course, there's still, a lot to do. But the young millennials, the young people with Heritage of Shame and organizations that are corporate pride, what they're doing is depriving the youth of their heritage, of their
Yes.
true heritage. But you know what? I know that the millennials are smarter than just to take, just to see things at face value. They're going to listen to shows like this. They're going to find the SVA, and hopefully they'll join us, because you could become a friend of the Stonewall Veteran Association. And I believe that they're smarter, than we give them credit for. And so I know that
That's
they
right,
would
Rusty.
they'll
Before
eventually
the
find us.
virus crisis, I was speaking at colleges, and the young people were always very excited to hear it from the
Yeah.
horse's mouth, and the political science professor was very happy to have some real backup to what they were teaching the kids in their college classes.
Hmm.
Well,
The
Yeah.
Stonewall Veterans, also another organization, which they'd be ticked if we didn't mention them, is the Seniors Active in a Gay Environment, better known as SAGE, because they're throughout the whole country.
Yeah.
So they are supporters of ours. They could up the ante a bit, but they are. And we meet with them a couple of times a year. We actually have a dungeon with them, and they have a couple of their heads who are coming to our conference on June 24th. To
They
speak.
need our help. They've already taken our advice when we talk to them. Yeah, I noticed that.
so
Following them.
we're over an hour now, and I enjoy talking to all of you so much, as I always do. And I'd love to do this again, possibly on a more regular basis, if that's
Every month at least, honey.
amenable to you.
God bless you. You're an
That's a
angel.
good idea.
Yeah.
You could
Well,
call it Stonewall Stonewall Corner.
yeah, well, we can think of a name, but for everybody who is watching,
And
remember,
syndicated, honey, over the whole freaking country and world. Yeah.
Wilson, give your
Todo
website.
mundo.
All right, one second, Bert. Wilson, give the website and the date of your annual meeting again.
Sure. And thanks for having this show, Letitia. It's
Yes.
very important. And the good news is that it'll stay on the internet for as long as there is an internet. I did a search engine a few hours ago, less than that actually. And Andre did one about, that's my partner, 20, will be 20 years in about a week or so. Don't ask him for the exact date. He won't know it, I guarantee you. But that's, yeah, Andre Christie. He doesn't like when I give out his last name, which I very rarely do. But anyway, the 54th Annual Conference and Stonewall Veterans Reunion, we have some that come in who are way out of state, but we only see them once a year. That will be on Saturday, June 24th, and it's at the Church of the Village. Nobody has given the location yet. Church of the Village is on 7th Avenue South. Big church. It's like a cathedral.
13th Street.
Yeah, West 13th, right at the corner, West 13th and 7th Avenue. So someone that's coming by subways, you got the 1, the 2, the 3, the A, the B, the C, the F, the D. So many of them. The B are all right near there. And if you're coming in from Long Island, Rusty, anyone coming by train, they go right to Penn Station and jump in a cab coming down. We'll be there in 5 minutes because it's on the same.
What was the name? Church of the what?
Church of the Village, and you'll be getting the flyer for it tonight. We just got the final. The Church of the Village. Anyone can look them up. They have a website under that name.
I think when we did the ribbon cutting,
Yeah.
when we were present at the ribbon cutting for the center, I could see that church.
You're right. You're right. You would have been able to. That's correct. And we have special guests, public officials, Congress members, state senators, assembly members. I'd like to say we have council members, but we don't have any of them confirmed yet, although we've had a few of them at our meetings this year. We meet the last Saturday of every month. Anyone that wants to know, you're welcome to attend. And that's always at the Church of the Village also. The last Saturday of every month, unless that day is a national holiday, which is very rare.
So
A Methodist
I can
Communion
say,
Church, formerly known for a century as Duane Methodist Church. Thank God bless them. They have their setup is they're completely gay affirmative with lots of their resources and energy devoted to our rainbow community. God bless them.
And I just want to say to anybody that's watching or anybody who's considering coming, um, I I was so moved at the annual meeting to hear the stories, to hear from the men and women, because in 1969 I was just in kindergarten. So so for me to hear the actual stories and to realize how the world had changed by your actions, that we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for you on that night saying enough is enough, and how difficult your life was before that, and then to realize again that you were just kids who did this, who changed the world, blew my mind. So anybody that's thinking about going down, make the trip, make the effort, do it now, because these men and women won't be with us forever. And if you really want to understand what life was like for gay men and women even in New York City, it was not easy. So go and meet them and tell them your story, get to know their story, and become a part of the SRVA. I am a proud member. I'll always be a friend of the SRVA. And I thank you all for being with us tonight. I love you all, and we'll try and do this once a month.
Thank you very much, Letitia Romolo.
Okay, darlings.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.